Hello everyone, a very good afternoon and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. So before we begin the Hindu analysis for today, I would like to apologize for the delay in today's session. Unfortunately, there were a few technical issues which had to be sorted. So let's begin with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper, but before that, we have a very big announcement. We know that civil services aspirants, they face a very big challenge when it comes to covering current affairs. Students often don't know how to read the newspaper or how to link current affairs with the static concepts or even how to make notes and how to revise current affairs. So to solve all these problems for you, we are presenting a one-stop solution, that is UCAN, Unacademy's Current Affairs Navigator. This would be a standalone course that we are offering. It would be available free for our Plus and Iconic subscribers, but even those who are not our subscribers can purchase the UCAN course. This course begins from the 5th of March and live classes shall be conducted from Tuesday to Friday. Throughout the year, you will get 400 hours of content and we will be covering current affairs from multiple sources. From various newspapers like Hindu, Indian Express and other sources like PIB, and even important magazines like Yojana, Kurukshetra, Down to Earth, EPW, etc. So all the basic sources needed for civil services examination will be covered comprehensively with 4 classes per week. That is almost 400 hours of content in a given year. And let me tell you what is the biggest USP of this program. The biggest USP of the program is that these classes will be taken up by the respective subject experts. You will not have one teacher teaching all the current affairs of all the subjects, because we don't believe that current affairs is so generic. Current affairs is directly linked to your static subjects. So to analyze current affairs, to explain it to you, it requires subject expertise. So in these classes, which will be held from 9:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. on the Unacademy app, our respective teachers will be taking up the current affairs from their respective subjects. For example, I would be taking current affairs from international relations. Sarmad sir would be taking current affairs from polity. Sham sir would be taking current affairs from economy, and so on and so forth. So this course begins from 5th of March and the link for the same is provided in the video description. With this, let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. From the Delhi edition of The Hindu, I have chosen 5 important articles. There are 3 articles that require a detailed analysis, largely from a mains point of view, and we have 2 small prelims articles that could be important for the prelims exam. So let's take up the discussion. Let's cover these articles as comprehensively as possible. Now, if you guys are liking our initiatives, do let us know in the comments. Do press the like button and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So let's begin with this headline article from page number 1. We have a breaking development that was reported in Indian newspapers since yesterday. According to these media reports, there was something dramatic which has happened between India, Pakistan and China. And this is an incident that took place almost 1 month ago in January 2024. According to these media reports, Indian authorities have confiscated a consignment that had been sent from China which was headed towards Pakistan. A particular ship that had left from a Chinese port carrying a questionable technological material was headed towards the Karachi port in Pakistan. And based on intelligence inputs, Indian customs officials and Indian intelligence agencies intercepted the ship at the Mumbai port, at the JNPT, the Jawaharlal Nehru Port Terminal or the Navshera port. And almost for 1 month, this particular ship, which was carrying a questionable consignment, has been held and confiscated by the Indian authorities. Now, what was this consignment? Why did India intervene and intercept the consignment, and why did we confiscate this? According to emerging reports, this consignment contained what we call as dual-use technology related to weapons of mass destruction, particularly nuclear weapons. a particular technology, a very advanced technological equipment, which is of Italian origin, had been procured by a Chinese company. And this Chinese company was sending it via the sea route to Pakistan. And the vendor in Pakistan was a private engineering company called Cosmos Engineering. This Pakistani engineering company has been on the watch list of Indian intelligence agencies from a long time. Indian agencies are aware that this particular Pakistani company called Cosmos Engineering has been providing defense services to Pakistani defense forces. India even has information that Cosmos Engineering of Pakistan has been involved with Pakistan's nuclear and missile development program. So based on very specific intelligence inputs that a high-end technological equipment which has a dual application, that is both a civilian and a military application, was being proliferated from China to Pakistan. Based on this information, Indian authorities have confiscated this equipment that you can see over here. Now, some of you might ask, what is this equipment? According to media reports, this is a CNC machine. It is a CNC machine, a computer numerical control machine, which weighs almost 22 tons. And 2 such machines have been seized by Indian authorities. In this particular ship, there were 2 such CNC machines. These CNC machines, they are used in the development and manufacturing of nuclear missile components. It is used in the manufacturing of nuclear missile development. Now we are calling this as dual use technology because there are certain technologies which have a dual application. When we say dual application, it refers to a civilian application in the industry and as well as a military application. So there are many such sensitive technologies which have a dual purpose or a dual use. For example, certain specific battery technologies, certain specific metallurgical processes, certain semiconductor related technologies. These are technologies which can be used in the civilian domain, in the regular industry for commercial purposes. But the same technology, which is military grade technology, can be used for military applications as well. For example, in aerospace, in developing space-based technology, in developing nuclear weapons, weapons of mass destruction, such technologies can be used, and we refer to such technologies which have a dual application as dual use technology. So India has been monitoring Pakistan's nuclear program from a very, very long time. Right from 1950s, 1960s. We have kept a close watch on Pakistan's nuclear policy and its nuclear development program. And China has played a very big role in proliferating or leaking nuclear technology, nuclear secrets, and even nuclear material to Pakistan, and has directly aided the development of Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. So since many decades, Indian intelligence agencies have kept a close watch on this nexus that has existed between China and Pakistan. There is an involvement of state actors from both Pakistan and China. There is an involvement of non-state entities as well, including private companies and as well as some criminal networks in leaking nuclear materials, technologies, and secrets from China to Pakistan. So this nexus between China and Pakistan has been one of India's biggest strategic threat. See, initially in 1950s, Pakistan had committed that it is not looking at developing nuclear weapons. It embraced the Atoms for Peace initiative, which was being promoted at the global level back in 1950s, and it said that it will never seek nuclear weapons. Pakistan said it was only interested in civilian applications of nuclear technology. In fact, this was India's position as well back in 1950s. So India also had said that we are not looking at pursuing the development of nuclear weapons, but we were interested in nuclear technology right from the very beginning. We were interested in the civilian applications, especially the potential to generate electricity to solve the energy problem, and also the medical applications and other industrial applications of nuclear technology. So both India and Pakistan back in 1950s were interested only in the civilian aspect of nuclear technology. So as a result, just like India, even Pakistan received support from the United States in the development of civilian nuclear technology. Even India received assistance from US and even Canada back in 1950s with regard to development of civilian nuclear research. We even received a nuclear reactor from Canada. The US even supplied nuclear material to India. So similarly, Pakistan was also receiving some assistance in nuclear research in the civilian domain, not in the military domain, from the United States. But things started changing very quickly from 1960s onwards. In 1960s, China had already established its nuclear weapons capability. China had accelerated its nuclear weapons program, it was testing its nuclear weapons, and very soon it became a nuclear weapons state. By then, India-China border dispute had escalated, and we had even fought the 1962 war against China. So following these developments, India decided to pursue the development of nuclear weapons at any cost for strategic reasons. Given that China was our hostile neighbor with a standing dispute, with a history of conflict with India, and since China possessed nuclear weapons by then, it became a necessity for India to develop its own nuclear weapons for strategic reasons. So by mid-1960s, India started accelerating its nuclear weapons program. Our nuclear program was now no longer limited to civilian technology. In fact, there are even allegations that we reverse engineered the civilian technology we had received from US and Canada to aid in the development of India's first nuclear weapons. So as India stepped up its development of nuclear weapons, Pakistan as well parallelly started accelerating its focus on nuclear weapons. By 1965, India-Pakistan had fought two conflicts over the Kashmir dispute. Following these back-to-back wars with Pakistan and China, naturally a nexus started developing between China and Pakistan. As they say, enemy's enemy become friends. So for both China, Pakistan, India was the common threat. India was the common enemy. So as India pursued nuclear weapons to build deterrence against Chinese nuclear weapons, Pakistan also started accelerating its nuclear weapons program, and China started playing a role in assisting Pakistan in its nuclear weapons program. So this collaboration, this nexus between China and Pakistan accelerated after 1971. 1971 was a turning point in the geopolitical history of South Asia, because India directly interfered in East Pakistan with regard to the crisis that was being perpetuated against the Bengali population by the Pakistani army, and India directly aided the liberation of Bangladesh. In a way, India split Pakistan into two parts. So from Pakistan's viewpoint, this was its most humiliating moment, most embarrassing moment. More than half of its country had been ripped apart with Indian assistance. So post 1971, Pakistan swore to take revenge against India. It swore to destabilize India and even gain a strategic edge against India. And within a few years, by 1974, India carried out its first nuclear tests under the then Indira Gandhi government. The first Pokhran test, Operation Smiling Buddha, was executed successfully, at least it was a partial success, which put India on the nuclear weapons map. So as India was pursuing nuclear weapons and even we conducted a test, this further triggered anxieties in Pakistan and pushed Pakistan to get closer with China and seek direct material support and technological support from China. So from here onwards, from 1970s till 1990s, during those two and a half decades, China would provide enormous support to Pakistan in its nuclear weapons program. From proliferating nuclear material to nuclear designs, technology and secrets, China would give complete support, and the United States turned a blind eye to this. It's not that the world was not aware. The US turned a blind eye to this proliferation of nuclear technology because at that point, US and Pakistan were close allies. US had become hostile to India. This was a result of the Cold War divide, as India had aligned with the Soviet Union following the 1971 war, where US had threatened India when India was liberating Bangladesh, India was being threatened by the US and pressurized by the US, and it was trying to protect Pakistan despite the genocide it was committing against the Bengali population in East Pakistan. So India-US relations had hit an all-time low, and we had even become quite hostile to each other. The United States, which was a very close ally of Pakistan, turned a blind eye when China was aiding and assisting Pakistan's nuclear development. So it was left to India to track and monitor Pakistan's nuclear weapons program and also keep an eye on the support that China was providing by proliferating, leaking nuclear technology to Pakistan. So Indian intelligence agencies have closely tracked Pakistan's nuclear program from a very, very long time. In fact, in 1980s, it was even alleged that India was planning to conduct airstrikes with the help of Israel to target Pakistan's nuclear enrichment facility at Kahuta. The Kahuta nuclear plant, which was involved in nuclear enrichment to enrich uranium to weapons-grade uranium through nuclear centrifuges, was a critical nuclear facility for Pakistan. The fissile material, which was eventually used in Pakistan's nuclear weapons, came from the Kahuta nuclear plant. So in 1980s, Pakistan started alleging that India, Israel were jointly planning airstrikes on this nuclear plant to prevent Pakistan from becoming a nuclear state. So this has been a shadow war between India, Pakistan and China, where China-Pakistan nexus has enabled Pakistan to develop nuclear weapons, and China has even assisted in the development of the delivery vehicles, including ballistic missiles. So this is of great concern to India, and today China continues to provide support to Pakistan in the civilian nuclear domain as well. So China-Pakistan have breached many international treaties and export control regimes and restrictions that are in place to check the proliferation of such technologies. China today is investing in civilian nuclear reactors in Pakistan. For example, at Karachi, in the port city of Karachi, and also at Chashma over here, there are two major nuclear power plants coming up which generate electricity, and it is China which is funding these power plants. It is China supplying the nuclear reactors and the nuclear material as well. Now, this transfer of nuclear technology to Pakistan is a violation of few international treaties and regimes. It violates the guidelines of the NSG, the Nuclear Suppliers Group. China has even transferred missile technology, missile components as well, which is a violation of another export control regime called MTCR, the Missile Technology Control Regime. And it's not just that. Pakistan has been a nuclear rogue state. It has not just broken and violated the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which even India did. That's another issue altogether. I'll come to it later. But Pakistan has been involved in leaking nuclear technology and nuclear material to many other rogue countries in the world. There was a time when the so-called father of Pakistan's nuclear program, A.Q. Khan, was involved with a criminal network that was leaking nuclear material to other rogue states like North Korea, Iran, Libya, and others. So Pakistan has been at the very center of nuclear proliferation. When the world was trying to prevent nuclear proliferation, to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and nuclear technology, Pakistan was at the forefront of spreading nuclear technology to other countries. Based on the support it received from China, this black market network in Pakistan, which involved few state actors, state elements from the Pakistani government, they were involved in leaking nuclear secrets and nuclear technologies to other countries, especially rogue countries like North Korea, Iran, and Libya, which have posed an international threat with regard to their desire to possess nuclear weapons. So that is why Pakistan has always been treated with suspicion by the whole global community when it comes to its nuclear weapons program. Even its civilian nuclear program is always under the radar because there is a close link between the civilian program and the military program. So when India finally tested nuclear weapons in 1998 at Pokhran, the second Pokhran tests were carried out. Immediately, Pakistan also retaliated within 2 weeks by conducting its own nuclear tests. Since then, a nuclear arms race has begun between India and Pakistan, and this makes the whole region very volatile and extremely dangerous with regard to escalation of tensions. Because you have three neighboring countries which have standing disputes and a history of war and conflict between them, and all three of them possess nuclear weapons: China, India, and Pakistan. So if India's nuclear weapons are a deterrent against China, Pakistan's nuclear weapons have become a deterrent against India. The whole balance of power in South Asia and in the Himalayan region has been affected by the possession of nuclear weapons by the three countries. So it is of critical importance from India's security point of view to monitor the nexus between China and Pakistan with regard to Pakistan's nuclear development program. It's in this context that the seizure of this consignment becomes very, very important. That's why it's a breaking news. So this particular ship that left a Chinese port almost 1.5 months ago, it was under the surveillance of Indian authorities based on a specific intelligence input. This CNC machines that I was referring to, it is produced in Italy by an Italian company, and it was procured by a Chinese company to avoid any suspicion, to avoid global suspicion, right? The equipment was not directly shipped from Italy to Pakistan. It was procured by a Chinese company, most likely with Chinese state support, and it was being shipped to Pakistan. And in Pakistan, it was being imported by a questionable company called Cosmos Engineering, which is involved in defense manufacturing. It is involved with Pakistan's nuclear weapons program, and this Pakistani company has been on the radar of Indian intelligence agencies. So based on this specific input, India has intercepted the ship at the Mumbai port and confiscated the consignment last month in January 2024. But in the past, there have been similar incidents. A couple of years ago, in 2022, a similar dual-use technology was confiscated by Indian custom officials at the same Mumbai port, at the Navashera port. Back then, Italian-made thermoelectric instruments, which is also used in nuclear and missile development, was being supplied from a Chinese company to a Pakistani company. So India, which was monitoring these activities, intercepted this consignment as well, and we had confiscated this consignment. 2 years before that, in 2020, even then, a dual-use technology was being supplied from a Chinese company to a Pakistani company. They were trying to hide this as an industrial dryer, saying that it was only for industrial commercial application, but it was actually an instrument called autoclave, which is again used in nuclear and missile development. It's a dual-use technology. It has civilian applications, but it can be used for military applications. It's a military-grade technology. So even then, India had intercepted this consignment. So India has been trying to disrupt the proliferation of nuclear technology from China to Pakistan. And this latest development just adds to it. Now, apart from understanding the history and the significance of this development, you should also understand the important treaties and export control regimes that are in place to prevent the proliferation of such sensitive technologies. There are few important topics such as the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which I'm going to explain, also called the NPT, and we also have something called export control regimes, such as the Nuclear Suppliers Group or NSG, the Wassenaar Arrangement that deals with dual-use technologies, and finally the MTCR, the Missile Technology Control Regime. These 4 topics are extremely important for your prelims and as well as for your mains. So let's look at these one by one so that we will comprehensively cover this topic. So even if there is any prelims or mains question, you should be able to answer them. So let's understand what is NPT, what is the Non-Proliferation Treaty. The Treaty on Non-Proliferation was brought out in the mid-1960s with the leadership of United States and other P5 members of UN Security Council. So US, UK, France, to an extent China and then Soviet Union. They pushed for a treaty to prevent the further spread of nuclear weapons and nuclear technology. It was primarily a Western initiative pushed by US and West European countries. Their agenda was to ensure that nuclear weapons and nuclear technology is limited to only the P5 countries. Because by mid-1960s, let's say by 1965, all the P5 countries, they possessed nuclear weapons. The US had not only developed and tested nuclear weapons, it had actually used them during the Second World War against Japan. Later, UK, France, Soviet Union, and later China, these countries as well, the then global powers, had tested their nuclear weapons. They had a formidable nuclear arsenal. Now, they wanted to retain the edge to themselves. They didn't want the further proliferation or spread of nuclear technology, and they came out with this treaty, the Treaty on Non-Proliferation. It was negotiated between 1965 to 1968, and finally it came into force in 1970. Now, this treaty is very, very controversial, and India is firmly against this treaty. And even Pakistan and Israel are strongly opposed to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. According to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, all the countries are supposed to commit that we will never develop nuclear weapons, we will surrender our right to ever develop nuclear weapons, and in return, we are going to get assistance in civilian nuclear technology. That is exactly what the NPT treaty says. According to India, this is a discriminatory treaty. India has rejected NPT, and right from the beginning, India said, we will never ever sign NPT. No matter what the consequences, India will not sign NPT, because signing this treaty would effectively mean that India will have to shut down its nuclear weapons program. Why? Because the treaty recognizes only 5 official nuclear weapon states. Only 5 nuclear weapon states are recognized under the treaty, which are none other than the P5 countries themselves. The treaty places a cutoff date. Whoever possessed nuclear weapons before 1968, they can retain their nuclear weapons. They can even continue the development and even testing if required to further advance their nuclear weapon arsenal. So there would be no restriction on US, on Soviet Union, on China, on UK and France. But every other country in the world will have to commit that they will never ever pursue nuclear weapons. It's a binding agreement, right? It's a binding commitment that they are making that we will never develop nuclear weapons, and in return, these P5 countries will provide nuclear technology, civilian nuclear technology, as a charity. Now, this was unacceptable to India. The primary reason why India rejected NPT was because, one, China, our neighbor, with whom we had a border dispute, with whom we had fought a war, with whom we had hostile relations, had already become a nuclear power. And this would be a great disadvantage for India forever if India also did not develop nuclear weapons. See, India is never an aggressive country. We never intend to use our nuclear weapons. Right from the beginning, India has been very clear that our nuclear weapons program has mainly been designed to serve a deterrent purpose, to deter countries like China. So if India signed NPT, it essentially means that we could have never developed nuclear weapons. There was tremendous international pressure brought on India by US and many other countries to force India to sign the treaty. But subsequent Indian governments, starting from Lal Bahadur Shastri to Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, Narasimha Rao, then all the way till Vajpayee, Manmohan Singh governments, India has successfully resisted this pressure, and we have said that we will never sign NPT. Do whatever you want, right? India will not sign NPT because we reserve the right to develop nuclear weapons for strategic reasons. So as India took this stand, obviously Pakistan would also take a similar stand. If India is pursuing the development of nuclear weapons, right? In 1974, we tested some nuclear weapons as well. So obviously Pakistan also rejected NPT and said that Pakistan also reserves the right to develop nuclear weapons. The same goes with Israel. Given the threat Israel faces in West Asia, it has maintained this ambiguous approach towards non-proliferation treaty. Even though it has no official nuclear weapons program, it's widely believed that Israel possesses nuclear weapons technology. So Israel also has kept the option open to develop and use nuclear weapons if ever necessary by not signing the non-proliferation treaty. So these are the only 3 countries in the world which have deliberately not signed the non-proliferation treaty. Everyone else have signed NPT. There are 2 other countries, that is South Sudan. South Sudan also has never signed NPT. Not deliberately, because there is no stable government. I hope you know South Sudan is a new country created just, I think, 11 or 12 years ago. It was bifurcated from Sudan. Since then, a civil war is going on in South Sudan. There is no stable government. So that is why South Sudan has not been able to sign NPT. But there is one other country which is an interesting case, that is North Korea. North Korea had signed NPT, but later it rejected NPT and quit the Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's the only country to have quit the NPT to develop its nuclear weapons. So North Korea today has developed and tested nuclear weapons as well, which is in violation of Non-Proliferation Treaty. So please remember this. There are only 5 countries in the world which have not signed NPT. India, Pakistan and Israel, which have deliberately not signed it because they see this as a discriminatory treaty. They want to retain the option of developing nuclear weapons someday. South Sudan has not signed it because there has been no stable government. It's going through a civil war. North Korea had signed it, but later quit NPT to develop nuclear weapons because of its rivalries with South Korea, Japan, US, etc. So in all of this, there is a role and involvement of China. China has basically propped Pakistan against India. It has enabled Pakistan's nuclear and missile program to prop Pakistan as a proxy against India. It has done the same with North Korea as well. There is suspected Chinese involvement in giving support to North Korea's nuclear and missile program, which China uses as a proxy to put pressure on American allies like Japan and South Korea, and even to put pressure on the United States. So this becomes a major global issue as well. And when India went ahead and developed its nuclear weapons, we were in violation of Non-Proliferation Treaty as well. Both India, Pakistan, right? When we continued the pursuit of our nuclear weapons throughout 1970s, 1980s and 1990s, and when we eventually tested the weapons in 1998, both India, Pakistan did this against international law. Whether you sign the treaty or not, still it is seen as a violation of NPT, and India, Pakistan were criticized for the nuclear test of 98. We were even targeted with economic and technological sanctions by US and other countries because we had broken the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Is that clear? Similarly, there is another treaty called CTBT, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. It is related to the whole nuclear disarmament process. This treaty bans nuclear testing, the testing of nuclear weapons. So India has not signed CTBT as well, because we want to reserve the right to test nuclear weapons someday if we have to further upgrade our nuclear arsenal. So India has rejected both these treaties related to nuclear development, Non-Proliferation Treaty and as well as CTBT. Same with Pakistan. Even Pakistan has not signed both of them, because India always wanted to retain the option of developing the nuclear weapons, because according to India, NPT and even CTBT are discriminatory. It favors the official nuclear weapon states, the P5, the 5 permanent members of UN Security Council. It allows them to retain nuclear weapons and even test nuclear weapons if required, right? And it's quite interesting to note, US and China themselves have not signed the CTBT. They're reserving the right to test nuclear weapons someday if required. So why would India sign CTBT? And based on that, why would Pakistan sign CTBT? But it's very important to note that India's nuclear program has always been a very clean program. We have a clean track record. India has never been responsible for the leakage or proliferation of nuclear secrets. We have not leaked nuclear material, nuclear technology to other rogue countries like Pakistan. This is where a difference comes up between India's nuclear program and Pakistan's nuclear program. India also has a clear nuclear doctrine in place. We have a very transparent mechanism. We have clear principles outlined under the nuclear doctrine. Our nuclear weapons are firmly under civilian control, under the control of the civilian government, not under the control of the military, right? We have a no first use policy, meaning we will never use nuclear weapons as a first option. India will only use it as a second strike to retaliate against another country if India is ever attacked with nuclear weapons. Our weapons program is only meant for deterrence, to deter the enemy from launching the first strike on India, right? So India's command and control structure is also very well established. Our nuclear material, technology and weapons are very safe. There has never been a case of leakage or theft or proliferation from India. But from Pakistan, there have been many incidents of leakage of nuclear material and technology. In fact, Pakistan has been the fountainhead of proliferation of nuclear secrets to rogue countries like North Korea, Libya, and Iran. So that is why India's nuclear program finally started getting recognition in the early 2000s. It all began with the India-US nuclear deal. In 2004-2005, the historic India-US nuclear deal was signed, which saw the full transformation of India-US relations. Until then, the US, which was targeting India's nuclear program, which had even imposed economic and technological sanctions on India, finally started engaging with India by focusing on nuclear commerce. The US realized it could invest in India's nuclear sector. American nuclear companies could sell nuclear reactors to India. It could share nuclear material and technology to India to help India generate electricity. So this landmark deal, worked out by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and then President George Bush, was a landmark deal that transformed India-US relations. The US was in a way giving recognition to India's nuclear program, and it lifted the economic and technological sanctions on India. It recognized India's nuclear program as a clean program with no record of any nuclear leakage or proliferation, and it also promised to help India. The US promised to help India to get membership of important export control regimes so that India can access key technologies which were not available to India. We were using the term dual use, right? Technologies which have a dual application, a civilian and military application. There were many such technologies which were not accessible to India because of the sanctions on India. And India was not a member of the 4 important export control regimes. So the US promised that India will be given an exemption. India will be given an exemption, and US will assist India in getting membership of all the 4 export control regimes so that India can access the latest nuclear and industrial technology which can serve a very big commercial purpose. It could accelerate India's scientific development and industrial development. So with the support of the Americans, over the last 2 decades, India has become a member of 3 out of 4 export control regimes. So what are these export control regimes, and which are these export control regimes? That's the last question. There are 4 export control regimes, starting with the NSG, the Nuclear Suppliers Group. The Nuclear Suppliers Group was established in the year 1974 as a direct result of India's first nuclear tests. When India tested its nuclear weapons under Operation Smiling Buddha, the world reacted with anger. They blamed India's program as India had not signed NPT, right? They treated India as a rogue state, as a nuclear rogue state, and they criticized India and put a lot of international pressure on India to curtail our nuclear weapons program. There have been allegations that US tried to even sabotage our nuclear and space program. So with great difficulty, India continued the pursuit of its nuclear weapons. But however, to further limit the spread of nuclear material and technology, a global export control regime was created. Because India's nuclear program was based on some nuclear technology and material that we had received from Canada, US, Soviet Union, and other countries. So to restrict the export from one country to another of nuclear materials, this export control regime was created in 1974. There are 48 member countries in this grouping, and the condition to join NSG is that you must sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty. This is a precondition. Only the signatories of NPT can apply for NSG membership. And to get membership, you need the support of all 48 countries. Basically, the inclusion of a new member is based on consensus. All 48 member countries have to give a consensual approval to admit a new member. So only NSG members can trade in nuclear materials and in nuclear technology. Only those members who are part of NSG, right? Only they can export nuclear material. And only those who have signed NSG can import nuclear material. That is the restriction. So they have to inform the organization when they are trading in nuclear material and nuclear technologies. So this is a control regime, a restrictive regime that restricts and controls the export of nuclear materials and nuclear technology. Now, India is denied the opportunity of accessing nuclear material and nuclear technology because we are not a member of NSG, right? India wouldn't have been admitted because we have said we will not sign NPT. We will never sign NPT. But without signing NPT, you can't become a member of NSG because that is a precondition. That is a basic condition to fulfill. You have to be a signatory to Non-Proliferation Treaty to apply for NSG membership. So this is where US helped India. After the India-US nuclear deal, the landmark nuclear deal, the US promised to help India and it gave India the NSG exemption. By recognizing India's clean nuclear program, the US said that even without signing NPT, India will be given admission to nuclear suppliers group. Since then, US and India together have been influencing all the other members to support India's membership. And after many years of effort, we have got the support of 47 countries out of 48. 47 out of 48 NSG members are supporting India's membership today. Even countries like Japan, even other countries which have committed to nuclear non-proliferation, such as African countries, South American countries and others, they have all sworn to never develop nuclear weapons. They have a very strong commitment. In fact, they even have treaties, which I have mentioned over here, where entire regions have signed nuclear weapon-free zone treaties. All these countries wouldn't have supported India. But since US started backing India and gave NSG exemption to India as a part of the nuclear deal, many countries later started backing India's membership to NSG, including Japan, which has a strong commitment against nuclear proliferation. Because Japan is the only victim of nuclear warfare. So Japan has this very strict condition about non-proliferation treaty and following the restrictions on nuclear proliferation. But Japan recognized India's program as well, recognized that India's nuclear program has a clean track record. And with the help of US, even Japan lifted its concern about India. So 47 members have agreed to admit India as a member, even if India does not sign non-proliferation treaty. That is the exemption India has got. But there is one country that is blocking our membership. And yes, you guessed it right, it is China. China is the only NSG member which has placed a hold on India's membership. From many years, it's been almost 6+ years, India would have become a member by now, if not for China's blockade. China has blocked the membership of India, and its reason is that even Pakistan should be given the same treatment. It wants the NSG countries to treat Pakistan on the same footing as that of India, which is never acceptable to other countries because Pakistan has been the one leaking and proliferating nuclear technology. No country would ever provide that kind of support to Pakistan because everyone knows what Pakistan has done when it comes to leaking nuclear secrets. So China has used this excuse. It wants parity between India and Pakistan. It has challenged India's entry to NSG by questioning how India is being allowed without signing NPT. It's on these grounds that India's membership has been blocked. We have not been able to become a member of this export control regime. Is that clear? So this is again a very, very important topic. Now coming to the last part of the discussion. Since we were talking about dual use items, dual use technology, which has both civilian and military applications, we have something called the Wassenaar Arrangement, which is another type of export control regime. The Wassenaar Arrangement was established in 1996 in the city of Wassenaar, which is located at The Hague in Netherlands. This is another export control regime. It comprises of 42 countries, primarily NATO members and European Union members. They are part of Wassenaar Arrangement, and it regulates the export of dual-use technologies. It restricts and regulates the export of dual-use technology. Any technology which has dual applications. In fact, it maintains a list. Under Wassenaar Arrangement, there is a list of items and technologies and materials which have dual applications, which can be used for developing weapons of mass destruction. which can be misused for military grade projects to develop nuclear weapons or chemical or biological weapons or other WMDs. So to restrict the flow, the trade of such sensitive technologies, Wassenaar arrangement was created. So only the member countries can trade with these sensitive technologies. If the listed item is being exported or imported, licenses have to be obtained and reports have to be submitted to the export control regime to notify every country about the trade of these sensitive defense and civilian technologies. So until recently, India was not a member of Wassenaar arrangement, which means we couldn't access readily available dual-use technology. There were many technologies in the battery domain, in electronics, semiconductors, in aerospace domain, and in many other critical sectors, which would have helped in our industrial growth. But we couldn't procure them even though it was available in the market because of the sanctions on India, because we were not a member of Wassenaar arrangement. But thanks to the India-US nuclear deal and thanks to the support given by US, India became a member in 2017. With India's improved image with regard to its nuclear weapons program, right? So most countries started recognizing India as a global power, as a responsible nuclear state, and they admitted India into the Wassenaar arrangement in 2017. So this is the export control regime that regulates the trade of dual-use technology. Now, in the current case, where China was supplying this dual-use item to Pakistan, no such approvals have been obtained. China had not informed Wassenaar arrangement, no licenses were obtained. Pakistan is not a member of Wassenaar arrangement, which means that China, Pakistan are in breach of Wassenaar arrangement. They are in breach of non-proliferation treaty as well. They are in breach of NSG restrictions, nuclear supply group restrictions. And more importantly, China, Pakistan are breaching MTCR regulations as well, the Missile Technology Control Regime. This is another type of export control regime. The MTCR is an informal arrangement. It's a multilateral, informal export control regime which has been created to prevent the proliferation and trade of sensitive technologies related to missiles and other such technologies. For example, any missile or rocket or unmanned aerial vehicle technology through which a missile or UAV can be developed, which can travel more than 300 kilometers and deliver a payload of more than 500 kilograms. Such technologies are restricted under MTCR. If, for example, let's say, if through a certain defense technology, which one country is providing to another, if the other country can develop a missile or a rocket or a drone which can travel more than 300 kilometers and deliver a payload of more than 500 kilograms, such technologies are prohibited from being transferred. There is a restriction on these exports. The member countries are obligated. There are 35 members today, right? Previously, India was not a member. That is the reason why India could not access rocket, missile and drone technology easily from the global market, because we were not a MTCR member. Now, have you ever wondered why the range of BrahMos missile was kept limited to 290 kilometers? Isn't that little interesting? It's not any rounded off figure. It is a specific number at 290 kilometers. Why? Why was the range of BrahMos limited to 290 kilometers? It's not because it was not possible technologically. It is easily possible. In fact, the Russian variant already had an extended range, but only the Indian variant of BrahMos was limited to a range of 290 kilometers. Why? Because this was a joint India-Russia project. If Russia had helped India to develop a missile which can go beyond 300 kilometers, then Russia would have violated MTCR, as India is not a member of MTCR. That is why the range of BrahMos was capped for the Indian variant at 290 kilometers. But in 2016, India became a full-time member of MTCR. Thanks to the India-US nuclear deal and the support from US and other friendly countries, India got membership of MTCR, and thus we are able to access missile, rocket and drone technologies without any restrictions. That is the reason why today we are increasing the range of BrahMos. You already have the extended range BrahMos available with a range of 700 to 1000 kilometers, which is being planned. The range was deliberately limited to ensure that Russia does not breach its MTCR commitments by supplying such sensitive technology to India. Even cryogenic engines, for example, where ISRO was struggling, we couldn't procure readily available cryogenic engines from Russia because Russia couldn't supply this to India without breaching MTCR commitments. But now we can access cryogenic engine technology from abroad as we are a member of MTCR. So there are 35 members today, and if China is supplying sensitive missile and rocket technology to Pakistan, both are breaching MTCR commitments. Understood? So these regimes are very crucial. There is one more regime. I would like to give that as an exercise for you. See, I've discussed non-proliferation treaty and I've discussed 3 export control regimes: the nuclear suppliers group, Wassenaar arrangement, and MTCR. There is a 4th export control regime. I want you guys to read about it, figure out which is this export control regime, and mention the important points in the comment section below. Help out other students as well. Read about this, take this as an assignment. Read about the 4th export control regime, which I have not discussed. So that is the homework for you for today. Now, before moving on, we have a very important announcement. We have started a free trial access program, and this is available from 1st March to 3rd March. Between 3 days, today is the last day of the offer. If you download the Unacademy app and register, you will get a 7-day free trial for all our classes and courses available on the Unacademy app. The English classes, Hindi and bilingual classes, all the live and recorded classes is available for free, absolutely free, for 7 days. Only condition is you have to register before 3rd March. Even the class PDF, the notes, the handouts, the test series, everything will be accessible for 7 days as a free trial period. So do ensure that you make full use of this. And also our evening batch for the English medium has started from 28th Feb. If you wish to enroll, you can contact the number that's provided over here. Now coming to the next article. The other articles are relatively smaller. We can go through them quickly. Let's look at this article which relates to the topic of bail. On page number 9, we have an article that refers to a statement that was made yesterday by the Chief Justice of India. Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud has made a very important observation that our trial courts are increasingly not granting bail in various cases. Trial courts, especially in various criminal cases, they are not granting bail to the accused. They are keeping them held up in custody for prolonged periods, which is actually a violation of their rights. This adds to the burden on the justice system as well. It creates numerous complications along with increasing the burden on prisons and affects the rights of the accused. So Chief Justice of India has flagged the growing reluctance of trial courts to grant bail. In fact, in the criminal justice system, there's a very popular saying that providing bail, granting bail, should be the rule. In most cases, bail should be provided as quickly as possible, if possible, in the very first hearing itself. Why? Because according to principles of natural justice, the accused is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. Meaning the burden of proof lies on the prosecution, lies on the investigating authorities. If they are presenting someone as an accused in a criminal case, it is up to the police and law enforcement agencies and the prosecution to get enough evidence to build a watertight case and prove to the court that the accused is guilty. Until that is done, the courts will presume that accused is innocent. This is the very bedrock of the principles of natural justice in a democratic constitutional setup. Now, let's say there has been a murder or a rape or any other criminal offense where an accused has been arrested, right? These charges are being brought by the police, the law enforcement agencies, right? So unless and until they can prove this in court with evidence, with solid evidence that the accused was the one who committed this crime and establish the guilt of the accused, until then, why should the arrested accused be punished? Of course, the police and investigating authorities, they require custody of the accused for interrogation, to also ensure that accused does not tamper with evidence or influence the witnesses. That is absolutely valid. But in general, in most cases, the established judicial precedence is that bail should be granted as a rule. But unfortunately in India, there are some very stringent laws like Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, our primary law against terrorism, National Security Act, which also deals with so-called anti-national activities. You also have the Prevention of Money Laundering Act and many others, right? Even in our criminal laws, right? There are several provisions where obtaining bail becomes almost next to impossible. Even under the IT Act, the Information Technology Act, for, let's say, for certain cyber crimes, for sending offensive messages or for sending or circulating messages which might pose a threat to law and order and public safety. Even on these grounds, and sometimes even on frivolous grounds, accused who are arrested and jailed, they will not be granted bail in the system, right? One, because the laws are extremely stringent, and second, trial courts have made this a habit that they will usually provide custody to the police. They will prolong the jail time of the accused, which in itself is a violation of the rights of the accused. See, accused, as I told you, is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty, right? So any unnecessary time which is spent in jail, which is not required as per the validity of the case, is a violation of the rights of the accused. And this also adds to the burden on our prison system. I hope you know that Indian prisons are overcrowded. Indian prisons are overcrowded, and data shows that, data from the Home Ministry, from National Crime Records Bureau, the Bureau of Police Research and Development. All these are important research institutions under the Home Ministry that deal with crime-related statistics. The data from these institutions shows that the number of under trials is extremely high in Indian jails. There are several cases where the accused have spent years and years in jail, and at the end of the trial they are acquitted by higher courts, either due to lack of evidence or the charges were false to begin with. There have been many cases where under trials have spent more jail term than the actual punishment which should have been provided to them for the crime that they had committed. So this is a gross derailment of justice. It violates the rights of the accused. It increases the burden on the judicial system, on the jails. It affects prison management. So these issues have been flagged repeatedly by the higher courts, by Supreme Court and High Court especially. They have clearly said that granting bail should be the rule. Denying bail should be an exception. Providing bail should be the rule. Denying bail should only be an exception in exceptional cases. For example, when there is enough suspicion that the accused might tamper with the evidence if he is released from jail, or if the accused can exercise undue influence on the witness to twist the case, if such valid grounds exist, only then bail should be denied to the accused. Or if there is a possibility that the accused might run away from the country or try to escape the police custody in the future, only if such doubts exist, bail should be denied. So denying bail should be an exception only for certain exceptional crimes. Let's say very heinous crimes have been committed, like rape, murder, for example, terrorist attacks. These are heinous offenses, very grave, severe criminal offenses. In such cases, denying bail makes sense. But with other regular criminal offences where the jail term, the maximum punishment itself, is hardly 2 years, 3, 5 years, 7 years, there is no point in denying bail to the accused. So courts have clearly said, the higher courts, especially the Supreme Court, that granting bail should be the rule. Denying bail is just an exception, only for exceptional cases. But what our trial courts have done is that it's the exact opposite. They deny bail as a rule. Plus, our criminal laws are so stringent, and sometimes the cases brought up by the police and law enforcement is also completely biased against the accused. It doesn't give any scope for the accused to protect their rights. Trial judges are more than happy to deny bail, and this has become a disturbing trend in India. It violates the rights of the accused, unnecessarily burdens the judicial system, the criminal system, and the prison management as well. Prisons get overcrowded with under trials. So that is the concern that the Chief Justice of India has flagged in his speech that he was delivering yesterday. He has also pointed out how trial judges, they simply adjourn the hearings just after listening to the case for a few minutes or maybe few hours. They don't provide prolonged hearings. They keep on adjourning the hearings to a later date, which only delays the entire process, and after months they will take a decision on whether bail should be provided or not. So the Chief Justice of India has come down very hard on this trend that has developed at the lower courts. So that is what we take away from this important article. Next, on page number 10, there is another important development related to internal security, which is a very important subject under GS paper 3. According to this article, a tripartite agreement has been signed between the Government of India, the state government of Tripura, and a local political outfit called Tripura Mota. This agreement is designed to satisfy the demands of the indigenous people of Tripura. So this is where you should understand the concerns affecting the people of Tripura, the indigenous local communities. What concerns do they have? Do we provide any special provisions to such indigenous regions? Is there any constitutional protection provided? What are the demands of the indigenous people of Tripura, and is there a history behind this? That is what we have to quickly examine. Now, if you look at Tripura, the northeastern state, it has a history of violence, insurgency, and conflict. See, in Tripura, which is predominantly a multi-ethnic state, very similar to the demography of northeast India, there are multiple ethnic and tribal groups which are indigenous to Tripura. The most dominant group are the Tripuris. They belong to the royal Tripuri family, the then princely state that existed since colonial times and prior to colonial times. Apart from the local Tripuris, the indigenous community, the majority community, there are many other indigenous ethnic and tribal groups, such as the Riangs, even the Bil and Santals who were migrated over here from central and eastern India, right? The Bhutias from the Assamese region, Lepchas from Bhutan, several other smaller tribes. Even there are small populations of Kuki, Lushai community, right? There are Chakma refugees as well who have come in from East Pakistan and Bangladesh. So there are many native ethnic groups, tribal groups, and indigenous groups that reside in Tripura. So in Tripura, there is a special provision provided for the tribal communities, for the tribal region, under the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Under the 6th schedule, autonomous district councils can be established to provide for constitutional autonomy in tribal districts in the states of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. In these 4 northeastern states, in the tribal districts, in selected tribal districts, in total there are 10 such tribal districts in these 4 states. For example, you have Garo, Kasi, Jaintia districts in Meghalaya, where you find the Garo, Kasi, and Jaintia community. You have the Bodo region, the Dima Hasao region in Assam, right? So similarly, in Tripura as well, the tribal district has been provided with constitutional autonomy under the 6th schedule. So there is an autonomous council, the Tripura Tribal Areas Autonomous District Council. Now, this autonomy, which is constitutionally guaranteed, provides for a very high degree of delegation. Many key subjects, they are devolved to the local authorities. The local autonomous district council has its own separate local elections, where only local members from the tribe and the ethnic groups can contest. So they can look after their own affairs with regard to basic welfare, protection of their land, protection of their language, their tribal culture, right? They can come out with their own welfare schemes and policies to manage land especially, and the forest resources which are critical for tribal and indigenous communities, right? These powers are devolved, delegated to the local autonomous district councils. In fact, some laws and policies of the state government and the center will not automatically apply in these autonomous areas. They can be blocked by the autonomous district councils, right? So a very high degree of autonomy, judicial, legislative, financial, executive autonomy is granted to these autonomous district councils to satisfy the local demands. This has been a tool, a great tool in resolving conflicts, in resolving insurgencies, demands for statehood and nationalist movements, separatist movements in the Northeast. We have used the 6th schedule in many conflict-hit areas, such as Mizoram, for example. Right, in Mizoram as well, Mizoram has an autonomous district council, and the Mizo insurgency was solved by using 6th schedule as one of the tools. Apart from tackling the insurgent groups through security operations, we provided for a peace accord. Mizo region was granted statehood. Mizoram became a state, and constitutional autonomy was guaranteed. Through all these measures, which includes constitutional structural reforms, autonomous district councils have been set up through the 6th schedule, and the same has been done in Tripura as well to satisfy the demands of the local indigenous community of Tripura, particularly the Tripuri community. Now, why am I explaining all this? I'm explaining all this because this is directly related to the history of insurgency in Tripura. It is related to the ongoing demand for a greater Tripura land, which is a statehood movement. The local Tripuri community has been demanding the creation of a separate state. They want to break away the Tripuri areas, which belongs to the local indigenous community, and they want to form a separate state called Greater Tripura Land. And there is a political party which is leading this movement, which is nothing but the Tripura Mota. The Tripura Mota party, or just called Tripura, it's a political alliance of indigenous communities in Tripura, primarily led by the Tripuris. They are demanding for a separate state for themselves. Of course, within India, it's not a separatist movement as such, right? But Tripura has a history of insurgency as well. Back in 1970s, following the huge inflow of refugees and later illegal migrants from East Pakistan and from Bangladesh, there has been demographic changes in Tripura. See, in 1947, when India and Pakistan were partitioned, right, there was large-scale communal violence, not just towards the western borders between India and West Pakistan, but also towards the eastern borders between India and East Pakistan. So there was a large refugee inflow from then East Pakistan into Assam, West Bengal, and Tripura as well. Later, by 1970-71, when Pakistani army was committing a genocide against Bengalis, violating their human rights, targeting Bengalis, there was a huge influx of refugees, right? Millions of refugees flowed into Assam, West Bengal, and Tripura. Then after Bangladesh was liberated in 1971, with India's assistance, there has been a sustained flow of illegal migrants. Both Bengali Muslims, Bengali Hindus have entered northeastern part of India in quite large numbers. You also have other refugee communities like Chakmas and Hajongs. Chakmas are Buddhist refugees. Hajongs are Hindu refugees who have come from East Pakistan to the northeast. So what I'm trying to say is that states like Assam and Tripura and few other northeastern regions, they have been under the burden of the flow of outsiders, the flow of refugees and then illegal migrants from East Pakistan and Bangladesh. So this changes the local demographic profile, the population profile. So these indigenous communities have been worried that their land is under threat, their resources, their opportunities are under threat. They have felt that This could lead to inter-community, interfaith, inter-ethnic group marriages, which could weaken their language, their culture as well, right? And this is quite understandable, quite genuine concerns as well. But as these concerns were not addressed back in 1970s, as the scale of illegal migration continued to increase, it gave birth to socio-ethnic tensions in Assam as well and in Tripura as well. This became the root cause of the start of insurgency in Assam led by ULFA. ULFA's insurgency in Assam was primarily against illegal migration happening from Bangladesh. Similarly, the Tripuris who were being threatened by the Bengali illegal migrants, right, irrespective of their religion, the Tripuris rebelled against this, and Tripuri insurgent groups were formed in 1970s, and this turned into a violent separatist war against India. Back in 1970s and 1980s, two major insurgent groups were formed, the ATTF, All Tripura Tiger Force, and NLFT, National Liberation Front of Tripura. Both were armed organizations, Tripuri armed organizations, leading a separatist war against India. Their goal was to liberate Tripura from India, as they blamed the Indian government and the Tripura government for the entire crisis for failing to prevent the entry of illegal migrants, and they were seeking to liberate the region and break it away to form a separate country for the Tripuri community. But eventually, India succeeded in wiping out this movement. Through sustained effort in counter-insurgency, we wiped out these insurgent groups in 20 years. By 1990s, these groups were almost wiped out under the special provisions of AFSPA. Armed Forces Special Powers Act was extended to Tripura. Under these special powers, Indian Army and Assam Rifles conducted targeted operations which almost eliminated these Tripuri insurgent outfits. Plus, there was focus on development, conflict resolution, conflict management. Constitutional autonomy was also provided. Better investments were made, better development was provided by the state government and by the center, which had brought Tripura insurgency to an end. By early 2000, Tripura insurgency had completely ended. In fact, Tripura became one of the peaceful states in the northeast. It became one of the first states in the northeast to repeal AFSPA. In 2015, the Tripura Assembly passed a resolution repealing AFSPA, removing AFSPA from the entire state. So Tripura has been peaceful, but however, there are certain unaddressed concerns held by the local indigenous communities in Tripura. So under this political alliance called the Tripura Mota Alliance, this alliance has been demanding the formation of a greater Tripura land. They want some of the indigenous areas belonging to Tripuris and few other local communities to be separated from the state, and they want a separate state to be created as per the provisions of Article 2 and 3 of the Indian Constitution. Under Article 3, Indian Parliament has the authority to redraw the boundaries, the internal boundaries of India, to create new states. So Tripura Mota, or just called the Tripura Indigenous Progressive Regional Alliance, they have been leading this struggle for creation of a separate state. It's a statehood movement, and they want the creation of greater Tripura land. So to contain this movement, to satisfy the concerns and demands of the indigenous people of Tripura, the government of India and the state government have agreed for a deal. So that is the agreement in news. Government of India and the state government have signed a tripartite agreement, a three-way agreement with the Tripura Mota, with this alliance, political alliance that represents the indigenous communities in Tripura. Through this agreement, the central and state governments are promising to resolve the concerns, the issues of the people of Tripura, the indigenous people, be it their land-related issues, their resources, their control of forest resources, their tribal rights, the constitutional status of the Autonomous District Council. So all these issues and concerns they have, right, is going to be resolved by the central government and the state government through this agreement which has been signed. That is why the topic is very, very important. So this concludes my detailed discussion of all the big articles today. Let's quickly head towards the prelim section. We have only 2 small articles, and after that, we can close the session. Before that, please note, we are launching a new special class on our Unacademy app. Starting today, every weekend at 5 p.m., Asta ma'am will be conducting the analysis of the Indian Express. We saw in the comments that many of you were asking for Indian Express analysis as well, along with the daily Hindu analysis. So instead of the daily Indian Express analysis, we are presenting a weekly analysis of the Indian Express. All the important articles from Indian Express will be covered in detail, and the session will be live at 5 p.m. The link can be found in the description box below. So do attend the session live. Now coming to this article on page number 9, the Indian Air Force has almost completed the black topping of a landing strip near the line of actual control. See, over the years, over the last 15 to 20 years, India has been modernizing its military infrastructure against China with regard to the disputed border. We have started reactivating these landing strips called ALGs, Advanced Landing Grounds. These are semi-prepared runways of the World War era. During the Second World War, the Royal British Air Force and even the US Air Force, which flew their fighter jets in the Indian subcontinent while fighting the Japanese forces, they had used and created certain temporary landing strips in the Himalayan belt. For example, in the Ladakh region, in the Arunachal region, in the Northeast Theatre, right? So in these areas, few semi-prepared runways, basically a muddy road was created where fighter jets and planes could land to deliver equipment and troops to the forward areas. So post the Second World War, these old semi-prepared runways, they had become defunct. They were not functional anymore. India also did not reactivate them, rebuild these infrastructures because it was very, very close to the disputed border with China. But in the last 15-20 years, India's approach has changed. India has become very proactive when it comes to creating border facilities and border infrastructure to improve our military preparedness against China. So starting from 2008-2009, we started reactivating the ALGs, Advanced Landing Grounds. These World War era airstrips, right? There is no airbase, no airport or terminal, nothing. It is simply a piece of runway, a semi-prepared runway where some aircrafts, helicopters can land. We have started redeveloping them. We are even black-topping these runways so that some of our advanced helicopters, transport planes and even fighter jets, if necessary, can land and help in quick deployment of India's hardware, military hardware, troops and weapons towards the Chinese front. So the locations of these advanced landing grounds can be important for your prelims. So this article is mentioning the Nyoma Advanced Landing Ground in the Ladakh region. It's just 30 kilometers from the line of actual control, which is the temporary disputed boundary between India and China. So please look at the map here. I know this is an old map of Jammu and Kashmir, but the map serves the purpose, right? It's not showing the union territory of J&K and Ladakh. It is an old map, but it serves the purpose of understanding where these ALGs are located. Please look at the map. You can see Nyoma over here. This is the advanced landing ground, just 30 kilometers from the line of actual control. Below Nyoma, you have Phukche, which is another advanced landing ground. Then here, the Daulat Beg Oldie in the Karakoram range, in the Karakoram Pass, which is one of the last points here between India and China, right? And also Thoise over here near Leh and Chushul. These are the advanced landing grounds which Indian Air Force has reactivated in the last few years. We have started rebuilding the infrastructure here. We have widened the semi-prepared runways. We have started blacktopping them. We have extended the length as well so that even fighter jets can land. All right. Similarly, in Arunachal Pradesh, we have advanced landing grounds at places like Vijayanagar. At Vijayanagar in Arunachal Pradesh, along the Chinese border, where we have a standing dispute. Even here, a World War era ALG has been reactivated. So some of our most advanced aircrafts and helicopters are landing at these advanced landing grounds. For example, during the latest Ladakh clashes that happened in 2020, we used these ALGs at Nyoma, Chushul and Thoise and Phukche, and we deployed the Rafale fighter jets. Advanced drones were deployed here for surveillance to monitor Chinese activities. We even deployed the transport planes, the C-130J Super Hercules, C-17 Globemasters we have procured from US, right? We deployed advanced helicopters, including the Chinook and the Apache attack helicopters. So such advanced equipment can be deployed in a very quick span of time to the front lines to deter any Chinese incursions. So that is why the reactivation of advanced landing ground is an important topic. It explains India's proactive military modernization, which is going on since the last 15 to 20 years. All right, so please make a note of this and be aware of the locations of where these ALGs are located. Coming to the last article from page number 12, it's related to environment and ecology. It refers to a very, very important species, animal species called the Kashmiri Hangul, also called the Kashmir stag. This is the state animal of Jammu and Kashmir. Of course, now J&K is not a state, but still it is the official animal of J&K, the Union Territory of J&K. Now the Kashmir Hangul or the Kashmir stag, it is a subspecies of the Central Asian red deer, right? Until recently, it was clubbed with the Central Asian red deer species. But problem is, the population of the Kashmir stag or the Kashmiri Hangul has been dropping drastically over the last century. So given the risk for the very survival of this species, and also with new scientific genetic evidence, it was proven by researchers that the Kashmir stag is a subspecies of the Central Asian red deer. Under IUCN Red List, which lists the threatened species of animals, birds, etc., the Central Asian red deer is of least concern. The Central Asian red deer is listed as least concern, meaning it's not under threat. But however, the Kashmiri Hangul has been facing an existential threat. So if it remained classified as the same species, then it wouldn't have got extra protection. See, its numbers were somewhere in the range of 2,000 to 3,000, and it is endemic to Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh. You cannot find the Kashmiri Hangul anywhere. It's an endemic species. It is specifically found in the Dachigam National Park, located on the outskirts of Srinagar, and it's found in parts of Himachal Pradesh and the Tral Wildlife Sanctuary. 100 years ago, its population was somewhere in the range of 2,000 to 3,000 individuals. But over the decades, it has dropped drastically to less than 200. Today, hardly around 200 to 40 individuals are left in Dachigam National Park on the outskirts of Srinagar and in the Tral Wildlife Sanctuary. So it's found only here in J&K and in some parts of Himachal Pradesh. Its population has been on the decline mainly due to habitat loss, habitat destruction, and also due to hunting and poaching. So that is why, to improve the conservation status, to provide additional protection, right, India established that the Kashmiri Hangul is a subspecies which requires a separate classification of its own. And accordingly, today it has been recognized as a subspecies of the red deer family, and it has been given a separate classification status. It is a critically endangered subspecies today. In the indigenous region, it is listed as critically endangered because its numbers have fallen from almost 2,000 to 3,000 100 years ago to less than 200. In 2015, its numbers had gone down to 160, 180. It was on the verge of extinction. But today, due to conservation programs, the numbers are increasing. It has touched almost 240, 250, and this year, in this year's breeding season, the experts, they are absolutely sure that the number can cross 300 during this year. Many more offsprings will be born during the breeding season due to enhanced protection and conservation measures, and the population of Kashmiri Hangul is on the increase, which is a good positive news. So these are the key points you take away from this article, and I feel it's very, very important for your prelims. So on this note, I would like to conclude today's discussion. Please take a look at the practice questions for your mains answer writing practice. It's all based on what we have studied. Please use them to write your answers, and if possible, post your answers in the comment section below. So this concludes my analysis for today. I hope you guys have found the session interesting. I hope you have liked it. If you did, please press the like button, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That is it for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.